Hello, everybody watching, and welcome to the Solution Club at the beginning of the new world. I am your host today for at least the next 20 or so minutes, Nolan Straight, and we just finished listening to Jackie's friend Melvin, who's on here for the first time, sharing about his experience with veganism and journey into that and the motivations behind it in response to a question from Brett, who was just saying, for transparency's sake, he's not vegan and just wanted to see, how vegans, what's the thought process behind it, what are the ethics behind it. And I know Brett talked about it seems like veganism has this implicit perspective that takes humans as highly spiritual beings that are somehow meant to be held more responsible than animals that are eating other animals. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't been vegan for very long. And Brett, you said vegan earlier, which is actually a term some people use to mean that the eggs are the only non-vegan thing they eat, which is actually where I'm at right now. I will eat eggs from a local farm, and I don't eat meat or factory produced eggs because I think we all understand why at this point. So yeah.
Have anyone ever heard of the concept of anthropomorphism? What does that mean?
Usually it means something like projecting humanity or human perspectives onto the world. So kind of an example would be well, I'll see if anyone else has. It's like a word I know, but then when you're asked to put it in a sentence, you kind of like get to
that little bit of attributing human qualities to things like let's say a cow or a horse, saying they're acting a certain way, and you frame it as a human activity, right?
Right. That's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Like Goldilocks and Goldilocks, like the bears, how they're behaving and they're talking and their thought processes, like they're human. It's just that's what it's projecting that human quality, that human thought process, and it's actually very arrogant of humans that we assume the human experience based on our experiences, the filter of the human experience is very arrogant of us to do. If I can respond to Brett, especially with the spiritual component, because I do see myself as a spiritual being living a human existence. So I thought that was fascinating you brought that up. And where I feel my moral obligation as a spiritual being is truth. And to remember my humanity and remember the truth of who I am is that I am nature and that I am an animal. My connection to nature is my spirituality. My connection to truth, my connection to the cosmos, my connection to my energetic being, that's all spirituality. So in order to be truly a spiritual person and a being living a human existence is to understand what being human is, and being human is an animal. And we're herbivores. That's why we don't eat meat, because we're herbivores. And there's enough science and there's enough literature. And we know physicians that go and tour and show, very basically break down physiologically how we are herbivores. I transitioned for health reasons. My family, we were all obese. And we were all really sick. And my children were, at 14, were being recommended to be put on statins and pre-diabetes medicines. And I had already lost my eldest child to pharmaceuticals, allergic reaction to pharmaceuticals. So that was just not even an option for me. And when they were saying, well, that's it, you know, this is how it is, it was like, yeah, that's not good enough for me. There's got to be something different. So I started researching. At the same time, I was working with the ACLU, and I was doing all of my social justice fighting and doing all of that activism. And so when we transitioned, I took the T. Colin Campbell course of plant-based nutrition and started learning about all the social injustices. And that married with all the social justice work I was doing, going, I'm fighting over here, I'm fighting over here, I'm fighting over here, but this is all the same war. It's just different fronts. It's manifesting on different fronts, but it's all the same war. And once I learned that, I could not know that. And I think it helped my spiritual practice, because I didn't realize how much of my anxiety, how much of my depression was not understand. I was suffering the consequences of the institutions, of the oppression, but I didn't know how to help myself and help my loved ones, right? Elevate and actualize themselves in this, because we couldn't see it. It didn't have a name. It was there was a presence, but we couldn't understand it. So once it was exposed and we could understand it, I felt empowered. I felt empowered with truth to do what is best for me and become the best person I could be. So I started learning more and studying more. And my spirituality just grew exponentially from there, because I was living in truth. I was grounded in reality. I wasn't living this cognitive dissonance within me that I thought I was doing one thing, but I was actually doing something else. I considered myself nature, considered myself compassionate, loving, and empathic. But meanwhile, I was loving my kids to death by giving them food that was contributing to their illness. I was loving my kids to death and I didn't know it. And so that reality was just kind of like, my gosh, how many people are doing this and they don't know? Everyone wants to be the best that they can be, but we don't have all the information. So we make choices that are not healthy for us and our loved ones. And that's not okay. So I took it upon myself to say, you know what, this helped me. Now we have to go back and help other people and just give them the information, let them make choices, but it's not fair for people not to do what's best for them because they don't know any different. And so that led me to the work that I do now. It led me to the collective intelligence to learn more. How do we help people? How do we just expose more truth? Because we're all spiritual beings living a human existence. We just don't know it, and we don't know how to remember and how to wake up to that. And this is one of the ways. When you clean out your cells are swimming in this soup that you put in it, and when you clean that out and you put just light and vitality and health and love flowing through your veins, you change the way you think. You clear out your thought processes. Your heart is able to really connect more when you don't have that suffering and that pain of these experiences of these animals before they leave this earth. And the thing is, when I'm asked and said, well, you know, plants have feelings, and do you know what we have to eat, right? We're nature, we have to eat, we have to sustain ourselves. So I look at it as a spectrum. I don't want to start at the spectrum where I know that these animals have feelings, have emotions, have thought processes, look at me and fight for their lives. I'd rather go to the other end of the spectrum where this plant, this tree, this bush has so much fruit and vegetables, it's just throwing it out to us to pick up. Please have, I have enough, here's some more. You know, I have enough to share for myself. I have seeds to plant more babies, animals can take, and I have enough for you too. I'd like to start my journey of sustaining my life and my health and my vitality with that kind of a choice, rather than having to pay a hitman to take the life of an animal that does not want to, and it's very obvious does not want to die. And we are forcing it into something so that we can then camouflage it, cook it and camouflage it with plants So it can taste like a plant, it can smell like a plant, it can look like a plant, and then we cook it all up so it doesn't even look like the animal that it came from. So we camouflage it as plants so then we can consume it. We're fooling ourselves into being the consumers that they want us to be. That's part of the whole illusion. And when I saw that, I felt empowered to say, no, I'm going to make choices for myself, and I'm not going to live a lie anymore.
Thanks, Jackie.
Could I speak to your same question? I want to give my perspective on this one. Melvin and Jackie, I really liked what you guys had to say. My brain was just like going all over the place, and I love making all the connections with veganism, because I am vegan. Sometimes I kind of forget like how much I like being vegan, and then I'll like watch something and someone kind of refires all those old neurons that initially made me go vegan, and it just makes me feel kind of like excited to be vegan again, which is cool. But I kind of wanted to talk about this idea of where, like, Brett, like you were saying, humans are a part of nature, and sometimes it might seem that vegans are trying to kind of like avoid an ugly truth of nature. Maybe I don't know if that's exactly what you're saying, but I know that's how I felt at times, was that that vegans were maybe just, they were repulsed by an animal part of us. They didn't like that. Well, and like Melvin was saying, how like there was a time when without tools, without our technology, even if we were able to chase down a deer, we wouldn't even be able to bite into their skin. We would really struggle with that, which kind of just points to our evolution with eating and consuming meat is like directly correlated with our evolution and development of technology. Like our ability to create tools is what has led to us to be able to widen our palate outside of the garden, and we're able to consume and rear and farm animals because of like all this technology. And so I kind of see meat eating as having evolved out of our technology. And I personally feel like we're in the stage of technology where things are kind of starting to come full circle to where while there was a time when perhaps eating meat was a necessity for survival that pushed people to come up with ways to take down animals, to breed animals to survive. Now I see it as we have the technological capacity to subsist off of just plants alone, and I see that as like also like a technological evolution, because there wasn't always a time when we could have nutrient-rich plant food almost anywhere in the world, and now I see that as like this is going to become like a new reality. Is like plants and edible plants are going to start to flourish in more places because we're able to move seeds around. And yeah, so I kind of see that as like technology and our natural evolution, I think, is leading us to start consuming plants again. And then this is where like kind of the spiritual element comes in for me, is that I feel if we are going to become a more compassionate species and do away with this history of domination and oppression, I believe that we need to stop killing our fellow sentient beings, because I think it's like a very I kind of just think it poisons our like energy field, our overall just experience of life, it's really easy to consume meat nowadays and not see the effects or witness the experience of killing an animal. But like when you actually like have an animal in your field of awareness and you're ending its life, I just feel like it's a very dark thing to have in your field of awareness and have at the end of your hands. Yeah, so for me, I feel like I see veganism as kind of like spiritual technology almost. It's like now I feel lucky to be in a time when I'm not being pressured to eat meat, or at least the pressure to eat meat isn't my survival. I feel like I'm very grateful to be able to subsist off of just plants alone. Yeah. Oh, also something Jackie was saying about this idea of the bush is just giving us so much fruit, so much food, and it's just like, please take more. That it reminded me of something else Jackie had said earlier, saying how she loves coming to these meetings because she comes and she gives some energy, and she gets some energy, and like we all can kind of go back and do our disparate things with more energy before. And I've always seen that as this kind of like vegan exchange of human energy, of where everyone comes together and no one has to lose something for us all to gain something. We're coming together and we're creating something almost out of nothing, and then we go out more abundant than any of us came in. And I think that in human relationships, you can have a kind of carnivorous interaction where some person might leave feeling better or more full than the other, if only briefly, but it's only because something was taken from someone else. And I believe that it's in all of our best interest to move towards these interactions where we're sharing abundantly and where everyone leaves more abundantly, and we're just like creating from our own like abundance. Anyway, yeah, I really appreciate this conversation.
I'd like to jump back in because honestly, like Nolan and Evan, my heart, like you gentlemen, just, as a mom, I just so proud. All children are my children, so I'm just so proud. I wanted to, and thank you for bringing up what I said, because like I didn't even see that connection, so thank you. Our bodies are, just as nature, always want to be in homeostasis. We always want to actualize ourselves, our best, our vitality. And we can stop interfering with that process when we stop putting in foods that damage our bodies, and we know what they are. So spiritually, we have an obligation to ourselves to be our healthiest selves and to give our bodies the foods that it requires, that it needs to actually flourish and stop interfering. Just like when you smoke, you stop smoking, you don't have to take medication. You literally stop smoking, the body restarts to restore itself and starts to rebalance and starts to heal. That's what happens when you transition. It's not necessarily taking plants that are just gonna heal you. No, it's you're giving your body what it needs to naturally go back to healing itself. So my family, we lost 300 pounds, 4 of us. I reversed my diabetes. I reversed my hypertension. I got off my anxiety and depression medicine. My children are no longer on ADHD medicine or anxiety medicine. They are no longer taking any medications. My sister transitioned and she has MS, and 2 of her lesions reversed that were in her brain. And my son had a hole in one of the valves that reversed itself. 1 year to the next, and his cardiologist was just like, go keep doing what you're doing, but he was prepared to do surgery to heal this for my son, to repair this. We've experienced miraculous healing, but it's actually not miraculous. I literally just gave my body the food that it was asking for, that were full of light and richness and color and vitality. And once I did that, my body started doing what it naturally did. All I had to do was stand and wait. And all I had to do was change my food choices, learn how to cook a little bit differently and introduce it to my family. And we all got healthy. That's why I want to go back and help. It's not so much to change people. It's to say, listen, I know you want to feel your best. I know you want to be your best. And this is what helped me. And maybe if I share this with you, you can see how not only are we helping ourselves, but spiritually we're nature. So when we help ourselves, we help all. And the same thing, if you're not okay, I'm not okay. And the last thing I wanted to say spiritually, what I learned is that being a vegan to me is the most humble way of being, because I truly see myself as equal to everything, and I see myself better than nothing. So I see a chicken and a pig and a horse and a raccoon and the tree as all living beings of Mother Nature. And who am I if I know this knowledge to change that for my palate, for my own personal pleasure? Am I truly being a responsible member of this planet and a member of this family? Am I truly being my best? Because I'm no better, no different than anything or anyone else that Mother Nature produces. So I have a moral obligation to be my best and make the best choices that make me the healthiest and the wisest and most compassionate. And when we go to vegan affairs, everyone can eat. I can't eat when I go to people that are carnivores. So that's not exactly inclusive. We're vegans, we're radically inclusive. Anybody can eat what we eat, well, except if you have an allergy, of course. But we're about that radical compassion, about being as compassionate as I am for a dog, because we're in the States, as I am for a cow, as I am for the fly, as I am for my next door neighbor. It's just kind of like that equalizer and seeing us all as of one family. To me, that's very humbling. And to me, that's really the spiritual connection that I have with the veganism.
You know, I like to jump in again. One of the lessons that we can learn and should learn from this virus is about our interconnectivity to one another, how we are interconnected. If nothing else from this here experience, we should wake up to the reality that we're interconnected with the person who's in South America, who's in Africa, who's in Latin America, who's in the Caribbean, into our neighbor. That we are, and that's one of the things that veganism is about. It's about our interconnectedness with one another. And we cannot, as a species, thrive on this earth if we continue this path of separation, of domination, of hierarchy, this philosophy and practice of speciesism, you know, and that's the thing where humans are superior to animals and they're here for our benefit. It's destroying us. It is destroying us. Everybody has to find their own reasons to change. This is one thing I learned about changing. If you don't find your own reasons to change, if it don't come from within you, and we're doing it to please others or to be as a bad thing, or we feel we're being coerced to do it, we don't get the spiritual component of it. So we all have to find our own reasons to change. I want to tip my hat to Nolan and Brett for sharing. And it's a journey. I didn't become a vegan overnight. I transitioned into it. And the more I got into it, the more sense it made to me, and the more I wanted to change the world. And that's the thing for me. I want to change the world. I want to make an impact. And as I said, I know that I cannot close down the meat packing factories, but I know what I can do. I can stop supporting it. I can stop supporting it. And if more of us move that to stop supporting the major industry, the biggest industry in America and the world is the food industry. It's food. Around the world is food. And if we stop supporting that there by going to a whole food, plant-based diet, a vegan diet, we can change this here world. We don't have to get out and demonstrate. We don't have to call people names. We don't have to make bombs. We don't just go vegan. The dairy industry right now, because so many people have moved away from drinking milk, is bankrupt. Its only way of sustaining now is federal government is giving them huge subsidies, huge grant money for the dairy industry to continue. People are not buying that cow milk anymore because people have woke up on that, woke up to it. So just by that fact that people stop drinking milk, is bringing the dairy industry down. If we was to go vegan, the animal agriculture industry will terminate on its own, and what will happen is the earth will begin to replenish itself. We all, a few years ago, there in Russia, and they had this nuclear meltdown, and you're right familiar with that, the nuclear
Chernobyl?
Meltdown in Russia.
Chernobyl?
Yeah, Chernobyl. All the humans got out of there. Now Chernobyl, they got wolves there, deer there, trees growing there, because the humans got out. And if we stop killing up animals, the earth will replenish itself. The forest will come back. Folks, if we don't have the forest, we're doomed. I don't care what the biotechnology people say, the GMOs and all those people say, if you don't have the forest, we screwed. We are screwed because the whole ecosystem, the whole biosphere is thrown out of balance. We need the forest. We need not only the forest, we need what's in the forest, the biodiversity of life, all the animals, the plants, the insects, and everything to make this here thing work, to make life to be not sustainable, but can thrive. We want to move beyond sustainability to go to regeneration, regenerative life, and for life to thrive. And the only one practice that we as humans have on earth, it's not driving the cars. It's not the exhaust from the smokestack. The one thing is killing up animals. That is the main driving force that's destroying this world and destroying the human race, and it's causing all these chronic degenerative diseases that we have, even the one that we're confronting with right now. So the only way I can fight these bastards, this system, is being a vegan. And that's where I stand.
Looks like my buddy Melvin in the house.
Hey, James. Yeah, good to see you again, bud.
Hey, good to see you, bro. How you doing?
I'm living well. Taking care of my family. I was telling the group before we get started, I'm trying to bring my family around to veganism, and it's a journey, it's a struggle, but I'm making progress. I'm really making progress. You can't push people into this here. You have to let them come up their own pace and put things out there for them to try. Just today, I made the most awesome vegan cheese in the world. It took me every bit of 30 minutes to make this big old batch of vegan cheese. I'm telling you, if I wasn't talking to y'all, I would be in this vegan cheese. It is the most delicious stuff that I ever ate. All these vegan meals that I make.
Well, share the recipe, share.
Yeah, okay.
We're having lasagna tonight.
I will.
We're having lasagna tonight.
It is awesome. Okay.
Well, thank you for being here, Melvin. It's so super cool to see you here, and it's great to see everyone.
Wow.
And a big thanks to everyone for your patience, and thank you so much to Nolan for holding the fort while I took a little nap. I'm sure he told you what the deal is.
Holding the fort.
Yeah. Awesome. And it's great to see Evan, my sister Jackie, Shiloh, Brett. How you doing? We're out there in England, and my brother Fred, and James in Ireland, and Myra. Just great to see everybody. So if y'all want to, anyway, don't let me interrupt. Sounds like the flow is going good. So I'll just go on mute and and catch up as best I can.
Well, we've been sharing, Melvin, Jackie, and Evan have been sharing about their journeys into veganism in response to a question from Brett a while back around kind of the philosophy, mentality, ethics. What does veganism mean for, how do vegans think about just being human, I guess, and Brett could maybe elaborate more on his question and what he thinks after the really good responses from Melvin, Jackie, and Evan.
Yeah, I could do. Thanks everyone for the sharing you've done. Just to recap, I said I had some inquiry around veganism, that I'm not a vegan myself at the moment, so to be transparent around that, and that I'm a hypocrite in that I don't like the way animals are farmed and all the process that we all know about, and that I'm participating in that by still eating chicken. So I'm aware of that hypocrisy or paradox or whatever word you want to use. Although I resonate with Melvin talking about transition, which is I eat far less than I ever did before, and still struggling with my own diet and things with colitis. And every time I eat chicken, it feels better. I know that's not. I know that's probably not the answer, but it just in the immediate gratification of feeling better with my colitis, like I hadn't found other solutions, and it was bothering me, like just eating vegetables all the time and trying all the things that people tell me to do, and then eating a lot of chicken was helping my immediate symptoms. So I have that paradox of wanting to feel better and not knowing how to do it the other way, or having the money to eat all our good organic food, blah blah blah. So I was talking a little bit about that, and I was also saying, what are people's perspectives and implicit understandings as well as assumptions around, for me, the idea of nature and animals eating other animals as an example, and where are people coming from, and just in their, it's more of a question, in their experiences. Is it that humans have the ability as spiritual beings or moral beings to make different decisions than other animals, and that's why we're called to be vegans, in a way? Like, why am I not like an orca where I eat meat? Like I eat other animals. Like, if it's okay for orcas, why is it not okay for me as a human? Like, questions around that kind of stuff. And all of that, so, and understanding that people become vegans for different reasons, sometimes health, sometimes moral, sometimes spiritual, sometimes a combination of those things, et cetera, et cetera. So Melvin and Jackie and Nolan and Evan have been sharing various points and positions, among them the idea that there's a lot of scientific evidence that humans are really meant naturally to be herbivores, according to a lot of science on evolutionary psychology and biology of our gut and our jaws and all. I mean, the list goes on and on about some of those scientific studies. Then there is the spiritual nature of it, and compassion on the side of that, and the health benefits. Jackie was sharing about her family and how even on that level, although Jackie's clearly also, it's important from all perspectives, but even just on a physical level, going vegan has helped her family heal a lot of things. And I'm not meant to be speaking for anyone. Everyone can pitch back in and, paraphrase their own. I'm not always the best paraphraser. I'm just kind of catching up since we're being recorded and trying to give it some context since you came in, Jamin. So that's kind of the conversation that's been happening. As far as what's my reflections on what's been shared, it's weird for me. I have like a 95% it's kind of like what you're saying, Jackie. Like I have a 95% resonance, and then there's the 5% splinter in my mind, which I'm sure is like 5% of garbage and distortion, like probably. But of that 5%, there's still that 0.1% splinter that is still like this inquiry thing for me that's still not complete. And that little 0.1% splinter almost relates to the anthropomorphic thing we were talking about. And I might use a word like human pomorphic or spiritual pomorphic or moral pomorphic, like meaning there's a million ways for people to explain or rationalize what they do. And there's even for me science that can explain everything. So there's science that were meant to be herbivores. There's also science that were meant to be carnivores and herbivores. There's also science that explains this. And I have some inquiry and questions around the idea that logic and reason itself are capable of making these kind of decisions. Like so I should listen to reason as the reason because science says so. Like I have questions around that. So I'm not really saying it is that. I'm just saying I still have this thing around like free will or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's anything to me can be explained with logic and reason. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a talk where the guy was saying evolutionary psychologists are coming to their determination that logic and reason are highly lowly adaptive abilities, and they've been used for people to persuade people of other things. So the tribe says like, oh, we should hunt that animal, or I should be in charge. And they use logic and reason basically to get what they want. And they're really lower level adaptations. So science for me also is so steeped in logic and reason. Like, so it might be logical and reasonable and provable that humans are meant to only eat plants. But I'm like, but is that the final word? I don't know. You know, I don't know if, because I don't, and this also goes to sense making for me, which Daniel Schmachtenberger talks about, which is I have no fucking clue who to believe. I've heard compelling arguments with my limited ability to reason. Again, I'm saying it's all limited. I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty open-minded, and I can't make heads or tails of all of the conflicting things, whether it's CO2 or meat or not meat. I don't know who to believe. I'm not an expert. I haven't spent my life studying the gut. I haven't spent my life studying CO2, and like, I don't mind trusting other sources. I think that's beautiful that we have people. I mean, I have questions around like Melvin saying like the people that are putting out these studies and all that, who are they masters to? Where's their money coming from? Where's their agenda coming from? And really, even the good guys often, if you look deep enough, their livelihood depends on something, and they're cutting corners and blah, blah, blah. So that whole thing makes me like my head spin in a way. So, and then if you just say in my heart of hearts, like in my heart of hearts, it feels like it would be healthier, for one thing, just healthier, no doubt, to be vegan on a healthy level. I still don't know where I sit on the spiritual, in that space. I don't know if I respect and understand. I can put myself in all those shoes. Like I can totally understand the reasoning and the perspective that everyone shares, and I have good percentages of all of those perspectives. And then there's that part of me that's like, but maybe I don't know anything. Maybe it's anthropomorphic to think that we can rationalize things through a language about spirituality and morals. And that's where my splinter is. I have a really big splinter. Like, it could just be a jungle out there. Like maybe it's just a jungle out there and we all adapt in different ways. And really, is there a right and wrong? I know in spirituality there is, in a way. There always is a right and wrong in a way. And it's different than moral relativity, which is another question. So those are all the things that kind of go through my confusion, inquiry. And like I said, I do feel hypocritical and paradoxical, and I don't feel good about contributing to the current state of things. I would prefer to be involved in something like an indigenous practice. Like, at least if you're going to eat meat, you would go through the hunt and you would only take what you need as you need it. and you would have more reverence around it. And if you're going to eat it, you should see it. You should see the blood. Like I'm Melvin, I'm one of those people. If I had to see the things that happen, I would pass out. There's no question about it. I couldn't do that myself. And that is at least the one thing I can say, Jackie, that is inside of me. Like you said, the cognitive dissonance, that at least at the moment I can identify as a true cognitive dissonance for me. Like I'm hiding that fact that I couldn't myself, kill a chicken and take the feathers off. And that's certainly at least the first layer of cognitive dissonance that I can acknowledge being in my consciousness. Some of the other stuff I'm still coming to grips with, like, on my own journey. So thanks for listening. That was a little bit long-winded and stuff, but I thought it would be, as the non-vegan and really struggle with this question, but yet consider myself to be highly inquisitive. I don't usually use the word spiritual sometimes because everything is spiritual, I think, for me. Like there isn't nothing that isn't spiritual per se, and from where I come, from my perspective. But anyway, thanks for listening, and thanks for being cool with someone who's not vegan. In other spaces, you got like people, whether you disagree or not, wouldn't be as open-minded and stuff. So that's why I like this community, and that we're all on different stages of different aspects of journeys. So thank you.
Awesome,
Brett. I want to say, I want to thank you for sharing. And hypocritical is a very damning word, but I think you are struggling with a paradox, as most people are, around this issue. And one of the things that I don't want to say some scientific people do is they are, I may be pronouncing this word wrong, obfuscate things. O-B-F-U-C-A-T-E. Everybody get that?
Obfuscate. It's hard to say it. How do you say it, Fred?
Obfuscate.
No,
yeah.
Obfuscate.
That's what's happening. And I just believe in doing good. And Jackie said it, it's just simple. Keep it simple. Would you want someone to eat you? Keep it simple. Just to do good. When we talk about doing good, is this doing good if I start a project and I make a lot of money, but at the end I hurt a lot of people? Is that doing good? I do damage to the world, to the earth, to other species, to other people around me, but I made a lot of money and I built a big house and I'm living. Is that doing good? So my thing is just to try to do good and keep it simple. Doing good is that don't take somebody else's life just because we have the power just to do good. I know you facing medical problems. I have medical issues too. And I've been a vegan, good vegan, really into it for about 3 years now. Jackie know what I struggle with, but I'm finding it, and I know that what have happened to me is that from eating processed food and all the meat and all that stuff for many years, it has damaged my organs, and they may not get back, but I know I'm not adding fuel. I'm not putting more poison in my body, not damaging more. There are these studies called migrational studies. They call third world country or undeveloped states, and they have no diseases. They don't have high blood pressure. They don't have diabetes. They get good erections. They don't have breast cancer. They don't have eating Western food. They got all the diseases. And this is one of the things that McDougall found out when he was in the Philippines or Hawaii, that the old people who had a basic plant-based diet, they didn't have any of the diseases that the young people had. So if we're going to look at science, and science can obfuscate things, it's a scientific study. All I want is, it's simple to me. If people have been eating plants and they don't have these diseases that we have, enough science for me. And that's what science do. Is say, well, One study would say this, and one study would say that. We know, I don't care what scientific study is, if you're not drinking pure, clean drinking water, you're gonna have some problems. Now you can get a scientific study and say, oh, well, you can put some contaminants in there and you could be fine. And this is what they do with the FDA do with meat. They say, well, we know carcinogenics in it, but our science says it's not a high enough percentage in it to do harm to the body. So they obfuscate things. And that's what's going on a lot with this thing about being a vegan, whole food, plant diet, or what. They obfuscate things and have people confused on what the real issue is. And the bottom line is that animal food is what contributes to all these diseases that we have. Every one of them, the obesity, look at measles, leprosy, mad cow disease, swine flu. I mean, tell you where these diseases are coming from, you know. So, but they'll say, oh no, you can't really prove that. You can't really prove it. So they try to obfuscate and think about those migrational studies that people who didn't have diabetes, they come over here, they've been living in the country for 30 years and didn't eat any animal food or very, very little animal food. And most people, I've been in Mexico, I've been into Africa, and most of the poor people, they don't eat much animal food. There might be some now and then, but they mostly eat a plant-based diet. There might be some now and then, but they're not having a steak and all that stuff all day. And what we find out is that they don't have this that we have. And again, veganism is about living with passion in recognizing our interconnectedness to one another and to the world and to nature and other animals, that animals indeed are brothers. You know, we was at Jackie and I, we were at event once, and we had this Native American guy up there and spoke about their tradition, how they killed animals and how it's compassionate. You know, and I told her a story, an African proverb, that if the lion could tell a story about the hunting wouldn't be so great. You see, I don't care how compassionate we say we killed that animal. Animal didn't want to die. We trick them. We do everything to trick the animal, then we cut their throat. They don't want to really die for us. And, you know, like free range chicken, all of these here chicken, these grass-fed, they have they're just as disease forming to the human body as the other ones. It's just that they are commercialized differently, and they end up dead. They end up dead. The free-range chicken end up dead. So if we want to make this world a better place, I can't think of any way to make this world a better place, make humans better people, this normalized violence to animals. And that's what we talk about, normalized violence. When we have normalized violence to animals, it would be easy for me to get mad at Jamin and want to hit him in the face because I'm conditioned to this normalized violence as a coping skill, as that solve any violence. And that's what we do to animals, this normalized violence. Move to a world where it's non-normalized violence, where if I get mad at Jamin, I'm not talking about socking him. I'm not even thinking that way. And to do that, we have to move away from killing animals. We have to move away from.
Can I say
something? We could justify the killing of animals. We could justify the killing of humans. Yes.
Hey, you guys. Shiloh has had her hand up for a while, followed by Evan. So
yeah.
Go back, and then followed by Fred. So why don't I'm happy to maintain the queue if you're cool with that, Nolan.
Can I just say something that, you know, in response to what Melvin's been saying? I mean, the way that animals behave in nature is they strive to maintain a balance. The animals that are eaten by other animals are usually the old and the young, or the infirm. And animals, the predators, sort of know when to stop. They don't stockpile meat, but they maintain the balance so that the animals that they're preying on can continue. I mean, when things in nature get out of balance, that's not a good situation. I mean, one of the differences is, and I agree with this, that the agricultural industrial complex is the problem. Spiritually, it's the problem. Like, we're just running animals into a slaughterhouse. There's nothing spiritual at all about it. It's anti-spiritual. But I also, if you think about it, when our forebears or whatever hunted animals, they didn't, stick them in the refrigerator or, stockpile it, except for maybe fishing. The, people who were fishing cultures did that. They smoked fish. But they ate the whole animal, and they used the animal skin to make clothing out of it. It's like, and there was a respect and reverence for the animal. The big difference is now there's none of that. I know in Judaism, when an animal is slaughtered, the last thing the animal hears is a prayer for its soul and an expression of gratitude that it's giving its life. Not, and I can't imagine in a slaughterhouse, where they're just okay. Well,
the only reason I do that, Fred, is because there's people in the queue. Shiloh's had her hand up since almost as long as I've been in this meeting, and so everyone has a point to make, even myself. So I'm going to put myself in the queue. So it's Shiloh, followed by Evan, followed by Brett, followed by Jamin, followed by you, Fred. I'm going to put you in the queue after after Jamin. No, and thanks everyone for your patience. There's a lot to say about this. Obviously, we have so many different points. I really love what Brett was saying, kind of taking it to a higher level and saying, wait a second, you can use rationality, you can use reason to justify anything. And what we're hearing is a bunch of reason, from different angles. Some good, some not so good, whatever. But, how do we take this conversation to a higher level and say, wait a second, okay, veganism, that's all right. We've talked about that for a bit. How about the whole of it, right? Our world is going down. We're in the process of going extinct, right? And we're chasing our own tail here. So I'd like to get back to that, but I'll talk more about that when it's my turn. Cesare is also in the queue, so we got a whole bunch of folks in the queue. Shiloh, you have been super patient. Thank you so much. Great to see you back. And please take it away, Shiloh.
I just have a couple comments, I guess. I wanted to say thanks to Brett for being vulnerable enough to share that you're not vegan right now. I am not as well, and also for health reasons. I'm dealing with some neurological issues, and it's been a long road, and I'm on a high-fat, low-carb diet, so I do try to do a lot of vegetables, nuts, what have you, but I do also have meat, and my health has improved drastically. And I think I'm still a compassionate person. I'm very spiritual. I'm very in touch with nature. I live in nature. And I'm very much for cruelty-free as much as we can be agriculture. I also grew up on a farm. I've had to butcher, and it's not disgusting as we see in like these farms. That is disgusting on these industrial agriculture. But there is something to be said about everybody having their own path, I think, and needing to follow their own spiritual guidance. And if you're doing something that does make you feel better, it's hard to want to be around people that maybe are making you feel bad about it. And I also suffer with mental illness. And every time there's like a massive shooting and it's like, oh, these mentally ill people, it makes you feel like, I'm not the problem. I'm actually a good person. And so I am all for reducing the cruelty that happens with this industry. But also, and I try to, eat less meat, and I'm very conscious of it. And so I'm not saying that and I love all you vegans, but I also love Republicans, and I'm not a Republican. There's space for all of us. And I just wanted to say, thanks, Brett, for opening that up. And often I feel like it's hard to express that with this group because I know they're so passionate, and I support all of you. I just support myself as well. And so I know that there's room for everybody. And I think industry itself is more of the problem that we want to address. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shiloh. What wonderful sharing. My goodness. It's such a privilege to be with you all in this space, in this new culture that we're co-creating. Alrighty, next in the queue is Evan, followed by Brett, and then there's 3 other folks in the queue after that, so everyone be patient and share away. Evan, go for it.
Thank you. Thanks to both you, Shiloh, and Brett. Because I can't imagine what it might feel like to share as a non-vegan in front of a bunch of vegans. But yeah, I was gonna bring up something to Brett. Oh, because you were saying how there's a lot of information and you can really find evidence or logic or reasoning to prove any side of the argument outside of just veganism. And this is where I think like a cool element comes in, where I kind of had to realize in myself, due to the fact that in my family, I'm vegan. My mom is like pretty vegan. My dad is like kind of trying to do the carnivore diet. So there's like some weird tension in my household. And I've had to like accept that there's evidence on both sides of like whatever spectrum you're working on. And that my reasoning for being vegan can just be like, this is what I want. Like I feel like too often we're caught up in, is this the right decision or is this the wrong decision? When it's like, at the end of the day, I'm vegan just because of how it makes me feel. And if people choose veganism because they feel bad about not being vegan, I think that's like the wrong energy to go into it. It's like you should be doing what you're doing because you're like happy to be able to do it, I'm just happy that I can be vegan. So like, that's why I'm vegan. I'm just very happy about it. I'm like, when I found out that I was like, oh, there's a good chance I can live off of just vegetables, I was like, this is great. Like, I don't have to like feel awkward when I'm eating around my dog anymore. It's just like, there you go. But also like, if you, if you don't feel that and you feel like you do need to like eat meat, like I feel like we're all on this like planet to go down different paths and explore different facets of reality and learn different lessons. And like maybe the lesson you need to learn is just different from me, and like who knows where we're all going to end up. But I think the commonality between all of us is like we all care about animals and we all care about nature, and we want it to be treated with more reverence and more respect than it has been in the past. And I think that's the common target that we're all aiming towards. So I like that we have that to bring us together.
Beautiful, Evan. My goodness, what amazing insights are coming. You see, I just want to make a quick pause. This is collective intelligence, right? We're all building off of each other's creations here. We're creating with our words, and it's like we're all like a bunch of 6-year-olds finger painting on this big wall, and we're just all kind of smushing our paint with each other's, and our fingers are touching, and it's wonderful, and so viva la collective intelligence. All right, we got Brett in the queue, followed by Jamin, and 3 others after that. Go for it, Brett.
Well put, Evan. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everyone. And Shiloh, you're clearly a good person and compassionate if you like Republicans. So I'll just throw that out there. I don't know. No, I'm just having a sense of humor. I agree with you, but it's kind of funny. Jamin, just to say hello and nice to see you. I did a 2-hour call I hosted the other day, and it wore me out. So I don't know how you're doing the 24-hour thing. It's like it was 2 hours of intense focus, and I swear to God, I needed to sleep afterwards. Like, also, I'm going to be making a GIF where Jamin says, "This is collective intelligence." that's like your catch line. This is collective intelligence. I'm gonna have to make a little GIF of that for the meme, for your meme movement. As far as the topic, I mean, it's interesting what comes up for me. So when Melvin said, "Would you want something to eat you?" My immediate answer isn't no. Like, I have to be honest. That's actually my immediate sensation was no. I don't, because it goes back to my not knowing right now and my inquiry of, first of all, treat others the way you want to be treated. So if I'm going to eat other animals, then I'm not actually going to maybe necessarily be angry if something eats me. I mean, on the most mundane, fair level, no, I don't think I would be upset because that's what I do. Even from that, I mean, it sounds kind of mundane, but it's, at least it's, for me, it's intellectually honest, like, or morally honest to say, well, if I'm going to eat other animals, then they can eat me. And like, that's what reality is about. So I'm not necessarily opposed to that. But the bigger, which sounds funny, but it actually feels truthful to me, at least on that level. But the bigger question that comes up for me on that is really about death, in a way, life and death, because I feel there's implicit assumptions here about living and dying. And like, are they the most important things? And like, protecting death at all costs. I mean, Charles Eisenstein's latest article about coronavirus was inquiring a little bit into these kind of questions. Like, do we want to live in quarantine? His context was like, living in quarantine and lockdown and isolation. Like, do we want to sacrifice all that just so we live, or do we want to live a full life with the always, the threat of dying? But living a full life is the choice, and that you could die, and that maybe it's better to maybe get the virus someday rather than just be in an Orwellian state, but we're still alive, but we're locked in, we're all isolated, blah, blah, blah. So without getting to my own perspective so much, for me, it's just another inquiry can of worms. Like, I feel like there's also just these implicit assumptions about, like, death is the worst thing that can happen. And I don't know if I, from a spiritual perspective, actually believe that, like, that death is the worst thing that can happen. So yeah, it is okay to eat other animals, and it is okay for animals to eat me, because that's also part of the great chain of existence or something. At least that's what goes through my head. But it's an interesting question to me about the life and death thing as a more fundamental question, really. And I feel like there's a lot of fear around that, and there's something underneath the currents of that. Like, that's why someone would say, well, do you want someone to eat you? Or something. Why? Well, why? Am I scared of dying? Like, as a spiritual being, I don't even think I'm here right now. Like, this is all just, for me, a dream, that I'm observing. And the thing that's observing this actually cannot be eaten and doesn't have morals. Like, that's when I incarnate as a human thing. I have these ideas, I have this reason, I have the limitations of a human body and a human mind provide all of these interfaces and things. But that's, again, my spiritual, it's part of my spiritual path. So thanks for listening again, guys, and thanks for being so welcoming, like you said, Evan and everyone. And I do believe we are. Evan, I commend, I just resonate with what you said, because it is true. And like I said, I admit, I do want to go more and more and more towards better and better and better and better. And I'm also a victim of my patterns and my habits, like Melvin's saying, and Jackie, like, you know, I'm used to eating meat. Like it's easy. It's there. Like I'll be excited as well when the technology gets to the thing and I can just, you know, put up a cheeseburger or whatever, and it's not actually a meat, but it tastes like it, and it has the nutrients I need to heal my colitis and all. Like, of course I won't need meat then. But that just reveals my own hypocrisy on that level. Because if I can, why should I wait for the Star Trek device, you know, to provide me that when I actually want to be there? I don't want animals dying en masse in horrible ways. You know, I don't want that actually. So yeah, thanks for Evan. I agree with you, and I'm on that path. So I guess that's what we all do have in common. Yeah, that I am trying in my own way to get to that level of things. Thanks for listening, guys. Again.
Absolutely, you could not be more welcome, Brett. In terms, and I can see everyone is agreeing with me on that. And again, what an amazing collective intelligence we're putting together here for your GIF or whatever. This is collective intelligence. All right, Jamin is next in the queue, followed by Fred, followed by Cesare. Welcome, Cesare. Followed by Adam. Welcome, Adam. So here goes Jamin. You know, it's interesting. What the thing that it attracted me most to veganism initially was I was with Dr. Silas Rao and Melissa in Berkeley. And hey, Uncle Frank. Welcome, Uncle Frank. And I'm not sure he can hear us, but hopefully he'll wave when he can. Right, Uncle Frank? Okay. And we went to this vegan restaurant called The Butcher's Son, which my sister Jackie and Melvin and I and Silas and Melissa later went to all together, a few months later. But we go to this restaurant called The Butcher's Son, and it's all vegan. Everything there is vegan. And what I was just overwhelmed by how much I love being around vegans. The people running the restaurant, the servers, everybody. I went up to one of the servers and I just said, dude, thank you, right? And so there's so many wonderful, attractive things to veganism. And in the very first block party, we've now done 8 block parties. Last Friday was the 8th consecutive block party. In the very first one, I organized a meeting with Dr. Silas Rao and with Alan Savory. And Alan Savory is this huge proponent. For those of you who don't know, raise your hand if you know who Alan Savory is. I'm just kind of curious. Okay, all right. Most folks here. So he is in his 80s, and he has an amazing TED Talk video that you can see on YouTube. Just type in Alan Savory TED Talk, and it's right there. And he has this program that's now getting adopted in all different parts of the world, which is all about livestock grazing according to the holistic land management paradigm. And if done properly, apparently, livestock can have this incredible regenerating impact. And the basic idea is that the livestock eats the grass and tramples and essentially tills the soil, urinates, defecates, does all these great things that are just great for the soil. But if you take away the animals from an ecosystem, a grassland that alternates between dryness and wetness throughout the year, then the grass overgrows, shades itself, shades the soil, dies, but the old hair can't get chopped off, and it kills the ecosystem and desertifies ultimately. And so you can actually reverse desertification with livestock, according to Alan Savory's program. So before I met all you wonderful vegans, I met Alan Savory, and I interviewed him and went to his conference out in Boulder, Colorado. And I was just fascinated. Oh my goodness, we can reverse desertification and sequester all this carbon into the soil using livestock in a more kind of free range way. It's actually controlled, so not exactly free range, but I was so fascinated. So I thought, let's get these two folks together they're both committed to saving life on Earth, to reversing climate change, to healing the planet. And so I reached out to both and I said, look, you know, I'd like to do this on the block party, but maybe we have a meeting before that's just private where we, you know, just kind of share, nothing recorded. But they were like, no, let's just jump in and record. No problem. Let's do it. So we had a meeting before the block party and a meeting and then another meeting during the first block party. And it became too much of a competitive thing. And I'm reminded of what Brett said before about like rationality and using reason and all that. There's this awesome book called Voltaire's Bastards, written by John Ralston Saul. And it just takes this whole thing of rationality and using rationality as a tool, and it just rips it a new one. And basically says what Brett said. You don't have to read the book, just listen to Brett for a couple of minutes. And basically what Brett was saying was, look, you can use rationality to argue any point, even points that are totally false. It's like a tool, and we are a tool using species. So here we are all, you know, making arguments here, there, and everywhere. Brett can say, shoot, I could sit here and listen and be convinced by any one of these different conflicting arguments, you know, and you know, and pointing that back to sense making. For me, collective superintelligence is the ultimate sense making machine, because, you know, there are no right answers and there is no perfect logic and all that. It's what we work out together. And this echoes what Evan was saying. Dude, I'm vegan because I want to be. You know, yeah, I could think of a whole bunch of different reasons, but dude, I'm not a computer. I'm a human being, and I want that. So anyway, I would love to bring the conversation. Hey, sorry, the crows were starting to argue there. We feed the crows in the backyard here. We love them. So I'd love to take the conversation back to this higher level of, you know, how do we make sense? Because veganism is one part of life. We've got all these parts of life, which any one of which is aiming to chop our head off in the next few months to few years, right? I mean, coronavirus, abrupt climate change, destruction of the biosphere, 6 mass extinction, poisoning and acidification of the ocean. I mean, the headline should read, humanity and Mother Earth in a desperate death spiral, right? And what are we doing? We're doing much the same as we've always done. But, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like, imagine that humanity, suffering, you know, not just humanity, but complex life is like a drowning person in the ocean, and they're just flailing and they're taking in water and they probably don't have long to go. And I say, here, and I want to throw them a life preserver, right? And imagine that the person metaphorically in the water who I'm offering the life preserver to says to me, dude, here I am trying to stay afloat, and you want to play Frisbee? Well, what the heck is your problem? I'm like, no, it's not a Frisbee. It's actually the tool with which you can save yourself. Here. And dude's like, dude, I don't have time for catch, for Frisbee, for all this. I got to stay afloat. Thank you very much. So no thanks to your Frisbee. I kind of feel like, sometimes I feel like this is humanity, and the life preserver we're trying to throw is collective superintelligence, right? But it seems like, anyway, I'll get back to that later. I don't want to derail a great conversation here, but in a way I do, because, you know, in the end, dude, we could go back and forth for 5 hours. Is Brett going to have any more clarity about whether he should be vegan or not? Or is anyone, right? We need collective superintelligence. We need to do this right. There is a right way to do this, and I'll talk about that later. All right, in the queue, we have Fred, followed by Cesare, followed by Adam. All right, Fred, go for it.
I'll pass to Cesare.
Okay, fair enough. I volunteered you for the queue because I cut you off earlier. All right, Cesare, followed by Adam. Go for it, Cesare.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here again with all you fun people. All right, I'm gonna lay quite a bit on you. I was taking notes, so please hang with me. So a lot of interesting things to talk about. So I'd like to contend the proposition that rationality can be used for anything. Actually, irrationality can be used to justify anything. I mean, if you want to justify anything, there's no better thing to do than to go with irrationality. But really, the point is that, no, rationality cannot be used to justify anything, because I think you're confusing here the difference between logic and rationality. Now, logic really is like the set of tools, the set of axioms that we use to, the rules that we use to make sense of things. But rationality is something a little bit bigger, I think, than it assumes the existence of logic and that we should be learning logic. But rationality also includes the subjective perspective and the desire to actually be applying logic properly. Because, like, for example, if you look out the window and you see that the ground is wet, and you say, oh, it just rained, is that rational? It's actually, no, it's not rational. Because yes, while it is possible that it rained and the ground got wet, it's also possible that your neighbor was walking by and watering the plants and spilled some water on the ground. So actually rationality is like, okay, it's also being able to say, well, I see the ground is wet, and so maybe it rained, but maybe there was another cause for the ground being wet. Rationality implies like that willingness and that awareness to explore all of the different possible premises for why the ground might be wet. So it's bigger than that. Now, regarding veganism, and while I'm vegan myself, what I mostly advocate for is animal liberation. I think some people are not psychologically and or not physiologically ready to be vegan, and that's their thing. Actually, the most fundamental animal right is to kill. Because the reason why that's the most fundamental right is because who's going to take that away from you? If they try to take it away from you, you kill them. So you can't have that right taken away from you, because you will kill for that right. So no, if somebody thinks that they need to kill other animals and eat them to survive, well, then that's what they get to think. But like I said, I am advocating for animal liberation, because ultimately my goal is to reduce the amount of suffering in the world. And the way to do that is to actually maximize freedom. That's the whole thing. And so to that end, I'd actually like to solicit your support for a very specific idea. So as some of you may know, I am promoting a new kind of networking platform, which is the worldwide stock market of ideas. And I want to show you what that looks like, because there is an idea for animal liberation that I'd like to share with you, and hopefully get your support on that. So here, let me do this real quick. You're seeing my screen right now, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the front page of Agora, the worldwide stock market of ideas. No, you haven't seen anything like it before. This thing is amazing. So I'm just going to log in real quick. So I'm logging in, and here I have my ideological profile. And this is like my portfolio, like a stock portfolio of all the different ideas that I support. And right here in the 22-point position, guess what? It's an idea for animal liberation. It's 23 is the most points that I can give to an idea. So 22 is the second. So it's my practically most important idea. And I'm going to open this up just to have the full focus. So I'm going to read this idea to you. The most fundamental component of reducing overall violence and suffering in the world is to ensure freedom from captivity for all animals, including humans. To achieve this goal, no one should be allowed to hold captive any other animal, especially to breed them or to harm them at a later time. And then it has a couple of references here. This I'm not going to open this right now, but just so you know, this is a link to a YouTube video with some horrendous animal abuse on factory farms. And this is the Anonymous for the Voiceless kill counter. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go to this. There's nothing else that makes an impact quite like that, because it shows you all the animals that are being constantly murdered around the planet. It's a counter. It's just, as soon as you open well, here, no, I'm not going to do it, but you can go there. It just counts all the animals that humans are murdering. So anyway, so this idea is here. This idea is in my ideological profile. What I'd like to do is to get your support for this idea, because see, I give this idea 22 points, but this idea actually has 65 points from other people. Other people are supporting that. And just to show you real quick what that means, in the Agora, you can have the idea dominance index of all ideas around the world, and to see how strongly they are supported by different people. So the number one idea here has 152 points from 8 people. It's about equal opportunity for children. If we scroll down here, here is the idea that I was just showing you. It's in 5th place. It's the number 5 idea in the world with 65 points from 4 supporters. And it's actually in 5th place right behind the number 4 idea with 66 points. So just by giving this idea 2 points, you can make this idea number 4 in the world. And if a few people support that, well, hey, guess what? This idea can become the number 1 idea in the world. But ultimately, we need to get more people using this platform, because the whole point of this platform is so that we create political candidates who actually represent what the people really want and think. So that's how we're going to reform the world. That's how we're going to tear down the current power structures and replace them with real, effective, rational ones that really represent what the people think and want. Now, another thing that I want to show you in Agora, because then the last topic of discussion is actually ethics or morality. And so I want to show you another one of my ideas. And here we're going to move up to the 23-point position, this is my most fundamental idea. It's my fundamental philosophy. As you can see, nature of reality, human capacity for understanding reality, mechanics of reality, ethics, rights, trust, and politics. This is actually a really big idea. We're going to open this up, and it has several sections. These different sections are parts of this header right here. And I want to show you, this is the section of this one giant idea is specifically about ethics. This is my view on ethics, and I really want to share that with you. Actually, it starts out it's rooted. This idea is rooted very much in section 3, so maybe I should start out with that. So free will is an illusion. Humans, like all other animals, are subjectively experiencing biological machines. We are controlled by our desires, and our desires can only be controlled by our other desires. The complexity of the interaction among our desires gives us the illusion that we are somehow in control. Now, that's a contentious idea. I'd be happy to discuss that with you. I'm trying just to present my perspective here right now, but I want to go on to section 4. Things get really interesting. The idea of morality, that is the idea of ethical right or wrong actions, is nonsense. Ethics is a matter of conflicts of interest, and the question of which actions are ethically acceptable or unacceptable is decided by the interests of a particular group. This in turn is a product of the psychological sophistication of the members of a particular group, human or other, and the environmental and economic circumstances in which they find themselves. As such, now this is a lot of theory I'm going to lay out on you, so I try to keep up. I hope you can appreciate this. But then again, you can always...
It's brilliant, Cesare. I'm on the edge of my seat, so just rock on, dude. My lighter is up, and go for it.
Light up, my friend, light up, because this shit's taking... the rocket ship's taking off, buddy! All right, so... as such, there are 4 main motives for a group to create ethical standards of acceptable conduct. The most primitive of these is the practical dynamics of reciprocity. The second motive is emotional, specifically the sense of empathy and the experience of commiseration with others. The third motive is also emotional, specifically the sense of community with other members of the group. Fourth and last motive is the desire for understanding, including intellectual consistency. Now, just as a side note, this idea, I'm writing a book of philosophy, a whole new theory of ethics. This is like one of the crucial ideas of that whole theory, is that basically ethics are just a product of our desire for understanding. We really don't give a shit about right and wrong. There's no such thing. We're just trying to make sense of the world. But anyways, let me go on with the idea here. So besides the self-evident ways in which the first 3 motives function to establish a system of ethics, there's also the less obvious motive of understanding. In order to appease this motive, we create various arguments to explain the relationship of one oneself to other persons within a reality. The claim of morality, ultimately supported by nothing but belief, is one example of such an argument. However, the most compelling argument is as follows. And this kind of, well, it just reminds me of Brett because, you know, well, what he was saying, and, you know, we kind of, I think we kind of jive a little bit. The conscious, so this is the argument itself that is used, the most rational argument to appease the desire for understanding when it comes to ethics. No conscious life is more or less objectively significant than another because no conscious life has any objective significance. This is because the idea of objective significance is nonsense. All significance is subjective. Anyone who acts with the idea that one conscious life is more or less objectively significant than another is acting irrationally. But of course, it is not unreasonable and perfectly normal for persons to have subjective biases regarding certain persons. So bam, there's a, man, like I said, I'm writing a whole book about this, but, well, not just about this, but so many other things. But so this is just a fraction, well, about a third, well, yeah, how you look at it, a third of my fundamental philosophy, which again is in the 23-point position of my ideological profile. It is 51 points on the idea dominance index. Hey, if you have a better idea, that's the whole way that the stock market of idea works. If you have a better idea, please introduce it, let it compete in the stock market of ideas, and maybe it will outcompete, you know, this idea. But otherwise, you know, this idea is in 7th place right now, 4 supporters, 51 points, you know, and of course we come together. This is actually the whole point of this system, is that we're able to scale the dynamics of a citizen democracy. So we actually come together regularly in the meetings that I organize. So I hope I can get you to join us. But yeah, it's basically a citizen assembly where people discuss these ideas, where we share these ideas with one another and try to persuade one another of what the best ideas are. So anyways, that's it for my presentation. I'm gonna, you know, well, International Logic Party, of course, if you want to know more, I'm here. So
how do you, if you have 4 people and you give 51 points or whatever, how does each person determine how many points they want to give the subject? Or if it's 151 points, were there 151 people who responded?
Well, the simple answer, you decide that for yourself. You decide where you want to prioritize idea, where you want to prioritize that idea. I mean, there are several factors you have to balance here. And this system is not unbiased. This system is biased heavily towards rationality. Rationally thinking people dominate within the system, even if they're in the minority. It's intended to do that. But so how do you assign that? Well, so there are, as you saw, the animal liberation idea is probably more important. Like, it's the to me, the most practically important idea is animal liberation. I don't care if ultimately if everyone agrees on my philosophy, as long as there's more freedom. However, maybe it's impossible for my idea about animal liberation to succeed unless people have a better understanding of ethics. And so that's why I promote my theoretical idea. I give it more points as opposed to the more practical idea, the one with more practical ramifications. And so I structure my ideological profile so that people, when they begin to process the information that's in my ideological profile, well, they start with a 23-point idea. That's how they get to know the fundamentals of my thinking. And then it's basically like a building. You start with the foundations and then you layer up. And so when you start with the foundations, you can understand things much better. So I think people are more inclined, well, not necessarily, this always varies, but so this is just one example. And then some ideas are just slightly more important to me, so I prioritize them slightly differently. But it's like a balance of rationality, which idea is more fundamental, which idea is more practical, which one is more important to you, which one is less important, which one do you want to have a little bit more support on the idea dominance index. Ultimately, how many points you give to an idea it's pretty much negligible, because you're one drop in the ocean, right? But rationally thinking people, their number of points that they can assign to an idea is practically unlimited, because they can more effectively persuade other people of the merits of their ideas, and they can essentially those ideas spread through rationally thinking people. Irrational people cannot consolidate and aggregate information as well. So yeah, you decide that for yourself, but yeah, you pick your strategy.
How do you get points?
All right. Well, okay, Evan, I want to actually propose. The conversation is taking a hard right turn into the world of Agora, right, and the International Logic Party. And Adam has been in the queue since long before that hard right turn happened. And also, let's just actually be interesting. After Adam speaks, I'll conduct a poll to see where we want to go in the conversation next. Hey, if a supermajority or even a majority wants to go in the direction of Agora and all that, great, let's do it. But let's have the conversation first. All right, Adam, followed by Jamin. Go for it, Adam.
Yeah, everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. Yeah, I sent out an email last night. I don't know how many of you got it. I did. I said that I was on a Rebel Wisdom meeting, and I was, but I didn't really get to talk about my project, so or my video. But that's all right. It was a good meeting, and so I did want to just say that that we got in Cesare and Jamie and I got in a little bit of a disagreement, and I just wanted to say that as far as my world without money view goes, I realized, I did say this in my email last night, but some of you might not have read it. I do realize that people are going to they're going to try and solve the world's problems using some type of monetary system, and I'm not going to stop that. I can't stop that, but I am saying that I think it's important that we also allow a world without money view to be put out there as well, because there'll be a lot of different people offering ways that involve some kind of monetary system. And if those systems don't work, for some reason they don't work, then we might be able to fall back on a system of no money. And it may be a system that's better than you think, because we don't really think about it very much. So I've been thinking about it for a long time, and when I hear people say all kinds of things, about life and why we don't do this or why we're bad for this, it always comes down to money. Tom Cruise in the movie Vanilla Sky asked the question. He said, "You know what the answer to 99 out of 100 questions is?" And he said, "Money." So it's I think that money has changed our way of thinking. It's caused us to become more violent. I think it's caused us to lose respect for animals, and changed our whole life and our whole demeanor towards life. So, and I won't go into that too much, but I did put out a pretty good video here, which I think it's the best one I've done so far, but it's called Message to the Second and Third Worlds. And it's 11 minutes long. It's on my website. It's on the home page. It's the featured video. if you want to see it. So thank you for letting me talk, and talk to you guys later.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here, Adam, and for speaking. I just want to acknowledge that we were in a conversation about veganism, and then the scope expanded a little bit, and then we shifted over to the topic of Agora and the International Logic Party, and then now most recently we've shifted over to the topic of money versus no money. So I just want to acknowledge that topically we're all over the place, and I'm not saying that as a judgment thing. Now, I was going to conduct a poll, but first I'm just itching to say something. So here it is. All right. Cesare, with your system of points and ideas, I have a problem with that. Now, before I get to my problem, let me also acknowledge, I acknowledge the value in saying, hey, what's the top priority, second top? I get that, right? So it's not like, I got a problem, man, I got a problem. No, it's not that kind of problem. But the problem is that I see, or the opportunity, is the problem is that you're making it one-dimensional, but in reality, like, there's a few dozen parts to a bicycle that are just like vital, right? It's got to have a frame, it's got to have ball bearings, it's got to have, you know, a crankshaft. It's got to have a whole bunch of things. And if it's missing any one of those things, it's simply not a complete bicycle. It might work for other purposes, but it's not going to work for the intended purpose. And so, you know, which of those parts of the several dozen parts of a bicycle is the most important? Well, they're all important. So what about a multi-dimensional map in which each idea has a place? Right now, it may be a bad idea. All right, well, it still has a place, because then right next to it, somebody could essentially create the anti-particle to that idea and say, here's why that's a bad idea. Therefore, poof, according to my reasoning, it should be gone. Oh, there was yet another topic we hit along our journey of topics, which was Cesare. Brilliant writing. My goodness, I'm increasingly every day I seem to just like appreciate you more and what you're bringing to the table, which is just absolutely huge. And so I love so many of the ideas that you bring to the table, because that's absolutely key, and that's key to collective superintelligence. Because and now I'm kind of rambling, so I guess I'm sort of going with the flow. Jackie and I and the rest of us who speak Spanish, Uncle Frank, Brother Fred, there's a saying in well, I know it's predominant in Mexico. It goes like this: "A como me tocan, bailo." However they play the music, that's how I'm going to dance. So I'm kind of going with the flow here. That we're kind of rambling a bit, but that's also a part of collective superintelligence, is that we give ourselves the freedom to ramble. But if we choose to narrow it in, we can also do that. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge all that as a really interesting problem space for us to figure out somehow, dare I say, master. But the crows seem to think we can master it, and indeed, why not? And this gets to the topic of a whole topology, a toposphere, a mapping of topics that's n-dimensional, where every idea has its place, right? And actually, the way that we make sense of all these ideas and the relationship to each other is precisely in conversation. So now you could think of a conversation as sort of a mashup of topics. An idea is a topic, right? We can have a conversation about that topic, about that idea, or as is happening right here, we could have a conversation about that idea and these 27 other ideas, literally. I mean, maybe it's 100 ideas at this point, but there's so many ideas floating around. But I mean, how else are we going to make sense of multiple ideas in parallel, simultaneously, other than to talk about them, right? And listen to other people talking about them, right? Having a conversation, exactly what we're doing right here. Now, one other thing that for me is like super cool, and this is what one thing that just really jumped out of what you had written there, Cesare, and the whole thing about, you know, like morality and ethics and all that, and that it's all just totally relative and self-serving to that group ultimately. And that is, well, shoot, if that's the case, then could there ever be a proper and correct morality and ethics? And I want to offer that yes, there could, there should, there must, and therefore there will be. Let's make it happen. Is this morality and ethics? Here it is. See, the crows are loving this. And they have amazing collective intelligence, as most of you know. Hello, Daekwang. So, hello, Daekwang. That there is a proper morality and ethics, and here it is. Drum roll. The morality and ethics derived from the selfish self-interests of a specific group, and that specific group happens to be all of Mother Earth and all of her children, all of her children's species, ecosystems, life-supporting systems. So in other words, the morality and ethics of Mother Earth as a whole, together with all of her children, all of us, brother and sister species, right? And out of that framing, now what Jackie says makes sense. Why would I kill my brother or sister to eat them when I can, you know, eat a non-sentient plant, right? Or the seeds or fruits thereof or whatever. You know, anyway, I know I put a whole bunch of ideas on the table. Cesare is next in the queue, followed by Adam. Go ahead, Cesare, followed by Adam. Go ahead, Cesare.
All right. Wow. I was taking notes the whole time again. With what you were saying, Jamin, about your suggestion about how Agora works. So we are ultimately, the whole point is so that we can algorithmically create political candidates who actually represent what the people want. Well, it's actually not the whole point. The whole point is so that people think more rationally, but that's the more important thing. But yes, then we're also creating political candidates who represent people's rational thinking. And so I think that the structure of the ideological profile is actually very flexible. Like a person could easily have their own method of structuring their ideas within the ideological profile. Maybe they could use the odd numbers for universal ideas and even number for national ideas, or whatever. People could create the divided into sectors and connect those ideas. So people can imagine their own ways of how they relate those ideas to one another. But the most important thing is that, you know, and some people might have an issue with that. It's 23, it's actually 46 ideas, but it might be too limiting. But when it really comes to voting for political candidates, people end up voting for a specific candidate based on feel and maybe one or two or three actual issues. Whereas here, you're really developing much more thoroughly your political philosophy. Like there's so many aspects. So yeah, it really allows us to make that much more precise. And yeah, so you can use your IP your own way, but we're still making much better candidates. About Agora, then I want to say something about Agora and veganism. Actually, so that idea for animal liberation, it sells well. In Agora, it's, obviously it's still a small sample size of people who are using it. But that idea, it sounds good, even for people who are still eating animals, and even for people who are eating animals out of captivity. They are still able and inclined to support that idea, even if they might be hypocritical about it. Agora lets people be hypocritical about that, and that's a good thing, because it's better that somebody supports an idea for animal liberation and still pays for animal exploitation than if they simply just paid for animal exploitation and didn't support that idea. So that's still better, because ultimately our goal is to take control of governments, and it is to realize those ideas. And if the idea for animal liberation rises high, well, guess what? That's what the politicians are going to be representing. And guess what? As the administrator and as the leader of the International Logic Party, I'll be sure to have my say. you know, in favor of that idea. Like there is an agenda here, you know, like I do have a plan. I am an evil genius, you know. But another point I want to say is about Adam, because he was talking about the world without money, and he reminded me about his email. And so that's the thing. He's talking about his platform for humanity and the world without money. Well, guess what, Adam? Agora is the platform for humanity. That's the platform that actually helps people connect, allows people to connect on a much higher level, and allows people to really take control of things. So that's the best platform it's there. So please use it. And guess what? Please introduce your idea for a world without money. And let's see how many other people you can get to support it. You know, let's see how well it competes in the stock market of ideas against other ideas. Because if people support your idea, that's what we're going to do. The people are going to get what the people want. So let's find out if that's what the people really want. And you can continue educating them. And maybe as your idea sells, you know, you'll see it rise. Maybe it won't. And then the last thing I want to say about Jamin and your system of ethics, same thing, you know, please introduce your system of ethics into Agora, and let's see how it competes against other systems, including mine. And I'll be happy to discuss this with you more. This, to me, you know, ethics, that's my main intellectual interest. So I'd love to discuss a deeper discussion about those competing ideas.
All right, beautiful. So Adam is in the queue, followed by Jamin, and I want to really encourage everyone else to jump into the queue and say something, even if it's, hey, you know, Adam, Cesare, Jamin, shut up, you guys. Stop talking about what you're talking about. We were having a great conversation about veganism. You guys have hijacked it. Who the hell do you think you are? You know, really, and I say that actually, well, I say it in a comical way. Obviously, you wouldn't use those words, but, you know, feel free to challenge and help redirect the flow of the conversation. Just as a, you know, this is a muscle that we're all building. I kind of feel like, you know, we're arm wrestling with Cesare here, and Cesare just goes boom, you know, because he's very skilled at just kind of taking over the conversation. And what in his mind, I have no doubt, in his mind, it is in a benevolent way. He really believes what he's saying, just like I really believe what I'm saying when I talk about collective superintelligence. And what I think is super cool is that really Cesare and I and Adam and all of us, we're all talking about the same thing. We want a world that works, right? That's why the International Logic Party was born, right? Because, you know, anyway, so I'm just saying, let's feel free to jump in there and even if you just want to call for a moment of silence and reflection or anything, I'm just saying, please don't let someone other than yourself control the flow of the conversation.
Raymond, I really want to comment on what you said, because that's exactly what I'm trying to get people to do. I want to get people to speak up for their ideas. So yeah, you're saying exactly what I'm trying to get people to do, and to accurately measure that. So yeah, please, everyone, because that's exactly what I'm doing.
So it's an interesting thing. So we are.
Is it my turn yet?
It is your turn in a moment.
Okay.
Jamin still has the talking stick, and Cesare borrowed it for a quick second and then gave it back. We're talking about the same thing, which is that each person take control of not just their own destiny, but the shared collective destiny. Right. And thank you, Cesare. And that's absolutely brilliant. So Cesare is saying, here's how to do it in Agora. And Jamin is saying, here's how to do it in this collective intelligence meeting, right? In this solution club meeting. The way to do it is raise your hand and say, hey guys, I don't like the topics you're talking about. Here's the topic I want to talk about. And a perfect example of that is Adam. Here we were talking about various different topics, and Adam comes in and says, money, a world without money. And there's nothing wrong with that, Adam. Anyway, Adam is next in the queue, followed by, I see James raised his hand, which makes me very happy. So Adam, followed by Jamin, followed by James. And if I missed anyone, let me know immediately, please. Go for it, Adam.
Okay. Well, a platform, I think of humanity needs a platform of its own. I mean, we don't have a place to go and discuss and submit our own ideas. I mean, I've heard that Kenyans are traveling all night long by foot just to be able to get on the internet and find out how they can help save the world. I mean, your typical person doesn't have the ability to speak or have a voice, but that typical person might know things that could really help. And if humanity had a platform where everybody could submit their ideas into the database, I mean, it's just like Jamin's saying, you know, with Radical Collective Intelligence, it tracks conversations. Well, then it takes those conversations and assembles them, puts them together in different, you know, the different topics, and then so that a search engine can go in and pick out the, you know, put the 2 and 2 together and put 2 and 2 together here and there and there and all over, and pretty soon you've got a whole puzzle put together. And so I think humanity needs a platform of its own, because we have this really good technology today that could be used wisely to help us solve problems and save the world by solving problems. I mean, this intelligence, artificial intelligence specifically, has the ability to become astronomically more intelligent than the entire human race combined. So we have this intelligence, and if we use this wisely, it could tell us how to operate on our Mother Earth, because that's what we're going to have to do. And I think so. Humanity's, and everybody should have a chance to help on this, because it doesn't. We don't get a choice over what family or what country or any life that we're born into. We just land where we land. So nobody has more right to live than another person. And nobody has more say than another person. Not in reality. And I mean, it's not ethically. So and humanity's platform would be an expensive platform. And if you had a platform for humanity, you would think that humanity's platform would have the best of everything. I mean, it would be equipped to the hilt with everything. And the way I see it is it would be set up not to overthrow governments, but set up to give us the ability to design a sustainable future. And the way we answer the questions of, well, how do we do this and how do we do that? Well, the measuring stick, this is the way I see it, the measuring stick is that we're designing a sustainable future for the children of the world. Because as adults, we've already lived most of our lives. And it's the children, if the children don't survive, that means humanity doesn't survive. So if we had an internet platform, and I think that some super rich person or persons will step up to the plate and help us get one, because humanity needs a platform of its own where we can go and submit our own ideas. I think Cesari's got it partially right there on the, you know, on a point system, and I could, you know, I would have a hard time expressing what I'm saying in a short question or short sentence. I mean, we grow up our whole lives being taught how to live in the world of money. Now, we learn it in schools, in thousands and thousands of hours every day of our lives we spend learning how to survive in this world of money. And it gives us the perception, especially those of us who grow up in the world of money, it gives us the perception that our survival depends on money. So then we'll do anything for money because that's how we survive. That's what we think we survive. But the truth is, our survival depends on nature. So, but we've forgotten nature. And money causes us to do that. So that's that. I'll end with that. But yeah, and so as far as as far as you know, testing myself in Cesari's Agora system, like I said, it's not, you're not going to learn your way out of it in a 5-minute sound bite. It's going to take an education, and the education needs to be based on all the decisions and everything need to be not made for money. They need to be made for what's going to provide the sustainable future for the children of the world. That's what the decisions need to be based on, not on who's going to make the most money or how much money is going to be made by here or there. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you, Adam. Okay, we got Jamin in the queue, followed by James, followed by Fred. Here's what I think. So, first of all, I want to acknowledge Cesari's frustration. Because I've felt similar frustrations, and what I think is Adam has a vision for a very complete platform, right? And so if he sees, you know, a platform that provides a part of that, he'll acknowledge that. But until he sees the complete platform manifested, he'll be banging the table saying we need a platform. And I totally empathize with that as well. And I think the platform really consists of all of these different platforms combined in a way that each of us can choose on which specific platforms or modules or whatever we want to play. Do we want to get on Agora and participate in the marketplace for ideas? Great, go for it. Do we want to get on a Zoom video conference and start talking with people about X, Y, or Z topic or combination of topics? Go for it. Are we more comfortable on Reddit? Are we more like, you know, text-based conversation? Go for it. Are we more, no, Facebook's more my thing. No, Twitter's, whatever. Let's bring them all together, right? Well, in a sense, they already are all together on the internet, but let's basically find better ways of, for lack of a better word, integrating these different platforms and services together to create and manifest the collective superintelligence that we talk about so much, which again, I believe that is the life preserver. I think a big part of our challenge is how do we communicate the life preserver so that people see it as a life preserver and not as a Frisbee, right? You know, it's like so many of the pieces are there, including Agora, brilliant piece. Including what I just refer to as Brett's Holonic Universe, you know, which includes New Map and Infinite World Game and all that stuff. Brilliant stuff. What we've been conceiving of here within the Solution Club and the Block Party. Brilliant stuff. So it's all brilliant. And what we're really talking about are different scenarios to accomplish goals, either specific goals or goals generally, right? And all these scenarios are valid. I don't want to sound like a relative, get into this relativism thing, but, you know, they are all valid. And in the end, people are going to use whatever services they want to use anyway. So how do we just kind of get all these services to play together? Is that even the right question? Anyway, that for me, these are the big fundamental questions of collective superintelligence. I've got my answers that I'm itching to share with everyone, but I'm going to hold my fire on all that for the moment because we're in a, I'll just keep it at the high level for now, which is that we urgently need collective superintelligence. It is coming together, right? I mean, it's coming together in this very conversation, right? With each of us bringing our different parts of the platform together and offering them, right? And saying, hey, this is important. Hey, well, this is also important. Hey, so is this. Well, guess what? It's all important. So let's bring it all together and give people the freedom to and tools to play where they want to play, talk about what they want to talk about, co-create the parts that they want to co-create. And in so doing, once as all of humanity plays in this way, we manifest collective superintelligence. I mean, we can do it poorly or we can do it well. And it makes a difference how we do it, right? And I'm going to keep beating the drum that is the life preserver. That's the next thing we need to do is actually build out the collective superintelligence. Platform, culture, community, rules, and so on. All the different parts of it. Here, I'm going to say hello to the crow for a second. Cluck, cluck, cluck. See, I'm learning to communicate with the crows in their language, and now that he's answering, it's just super cool. Anyway, I believe that collective superintelligence is the language of, not of the crows, but of humanity as a whole, and ultimately Mother Earth as a whole, because through us, Mother Earth can speak. Through us, our brother and sister species, like the crows, can speak, right? Through us building out a proper collective superintelligence that gives them all their proper place and space and ability to speak, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Anyway, that's what I have to say for the moment. I know we've got James, followed by Fred. Let me just see. All right. And Evan has a comment, which I'll read after James and Fred speak. So go for it, James.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I suppose in a sense you just kind of said half of what I was going to say. Well, you took a lot of the words out of what I was going to say, so I guess where I'm going to come in from this conversation now is like Adam. When Adam is eager about his idea, obviously, and everything else, and I can understand that, and he's eager to get it off the ground, and he's, you know, enthusiastic about it, as we all are about each and every one of our own facets of this, like. But all right, I'm going to just cut to the chase and say I think what we need to do also is not forget ourselves as well as the group is getting together in meetings anyway, because like although I really enjoyed the vegan conversation there a while ago, because as a non-vegan myself, I was fascinated to get everybody else's opinion as well after Brett's question, because Brett kind of expressed a lot of the emotions that are going on with me as well as a non-vegan, and the hypocrisy of what I see now as well myself. So anyway, neither here nor there, I was interested in the conversation, but and it went over into the, as again, like Adam, Cesare is very eager about his platform as well, and I can well understand that because it's a brilliant platform as well. And I can understand his enthusiasm as well. But so he took it down that lane, and then Adam took it that way. I'm reiterating what you just said there now in a sense, like, so that's why I'm saying you took some of the words out of my mouth. I don't want to offend or be, stopping of anyone in conversations or anything, I'm just putting in my 2 pence worth here. And basically is, I think we want to step back a bit, as enthusiastic as Adam is, and as enthusiastic as Cesare is, and as enthusiastic as anyone interested in the vegan conversation, or regardless. I think we need to kind of respect the parameters of each meeting in regards to what the agenda is as well, because like I'm just going on my point of view, as I said, is my 2 pence worth, but I'm in Ireland, so it's going to get on late here for me, and we still haven't broached really any of the gender topics, and other than just the similarities between Jamin's collective intelligence and Cesare's collective intelligence, which again I'm going to say, because this conversation has come up a number of times, I'll reiterate, they are both very brilliant platforms that complement each other and should be implemented together. And I see Cesare's platform, again, as I said, as the starting off platform, in the sense that we should all be encouraged to go ahead and submit our ideas. Admittedly, again, I haven't got around to it, but I did explain to Cesare in the message that I hadn't been too good in the last couple of days, so I just took a break from things and took a rest and whatever, blah blah blah. I get around to that, but I feel I'd be doing it injustice if I don't apply myself and give it a sufficient time to do so, because it is text-based, which is something that I said to Cesare as well. It is text-based, and you have to read a lot of text as well to understand other people's ideas before you go agreeing with them, and you'd have to consider your own ideas. I would say put a bit of effort into considering your own ideas before you decide to commit to them, putting them down on a platform like that. So that's something I need to apply a bit of time to, and I wouldn't be doing Cesare or the platform any justice by not applying time to it first before I submit anything to it. So that aside, I'm still saying it's a brilliant platform. I will get around to that, but I do see it as a platform for this, in the sense that we can all apply or write our ideas, and it would be a basis of getting where everybody is coming from as well, in their own ideas, thinking, and helping us to branch off into rooms as we, carry on into CSI. But I think it's again a starting point for Jamin's platform, because I see that as, regardless of whatever finite ideas might come out of Cesare's platform, I believe that you still need the collective intelligence and the face-to-face conversations to discuss those finite ideas even further, and to come up with even further finite ideas, and because those things might branch off into other conversations that you would never have figured out from just a text-based a text base of ideas and finite ideas. So that's where I see it has its limitations, and where Jamin goes on much further in that sense. And that's why I see they're both complementary to each other. They're vital to each other. As Jamin was saying, all the other components and everything else are vital to each other. But so just get on with getting it sorted is what I'm saying, because we can all get on with our ideas, and we all want to talk about our ideas and everything else. We get none of them sorted. We get none of them sorted unless we get this thing sorted. So I'm just saying, respect the agendas on the meetings, and like I wouldn't imagine, like, if we went to Adam's meeting there tonight and he was giving the talk about his video and we started throwing in a conversation about something completely different, Adam would be a bit pissed as well. I know Adam didn't do anything like that here. He's just coming in with his conversation, but I'm just saying none of the conversations tonight really broached on the agenda. That's it.
Man, James, I love you, brother. And I love everything you say. I think you and I were like separated at birth or something like that, along with Jackie. So that makes us triplets who were separated at birth, along with the others of you from whom I was separated at birth. But anyway, so we've got Fred was in the queue, but he seems to have dropped out of the meeting. Evan wrote something interesting that I'd love for Evan to speak to. And then Cesare has his hand raised. But first, a word from Jamin, which is that Melissa needs my help now. So I'm going to go help her for a bit. How long? I would estimate probably half an hour, because I really want to get back to this meeting. Today has been a weird day because we had just gobs of errands to run and had to go over to the mainland and just be super careful with everything. So it's just been a very stressful day, and I only slept 2 hours last night and then took a little nap before joining this meeting. So I'm a little bit messed up, but not really messed up, but a little bit jumbled. Nolan, how are you in a good place to kind of moderate? And maybe people need a break at some point. Nolan, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sure if you weren't ready to moderate, someone else would. But I just wanted to ask you because you started this meeting.
Oh, Jackie says she has another meeting in a few minutes. So thanks for joining us, Jackie.
And let's let Jackie speak. But anyway, Nolan, I'm going to pass it to you. Feel free to pass the moderator stick to whoever you need to, and I will be back. How long? I'm guessing half an hour, but I really don't know for sure. So anyway, and I say give the talking stick to Jackie because she hasn't spoken in a while. Please talk, Jackie. And I'm afraid I got to bug out myself, but I'm just going to mute my mic and turn off the camera and do what I got to do, and then I'll be back. Evan's moderator, and I will until he delegates to someone else, and maybe you guys will take a break at some point as well. But Jackie, go for it, and love you all, and I'll be back.
I just want to say, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just excusing myself for a sec. I have to go to the little men's room. I'll be back in a second, though.
Well, I think it was, even though we didn't stick to the agenda, I think it took a really beautiful turn, and I think we learned a lot about one another and about how we function as a collective. I think this was a very, very good testimonial of who we are in our hearts and our intentions. So it was beautiful. Thank you, Nolan. Again, Adam, it's so good to see you. Everyone, I'm so glad you're all here, and just love you all. See you Friday. Stay strong and healthy, everyone.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, well, I'm not sure if there was a queue to maintain. Cesare, I see you got your hand up. Before you speak, I would like to take a break at some point. But Cesare, I'll bounce it to you before we consider that.
Okay, considering the break, I'll try to make it quick. Actually, I wasn't really making a detour. I was making a few points, but they were, I think, all really related to the conversation of veganism and ethics. I was only using the Agora to my advantage to advance my points pertaining to veganism and ethics. It's everyone else who made, well, Jamin, really. I wish he was here to hear that, but so it's really Jamin who took that direction and in the direction of Agora. I was just using it as a tool to further my ideas, which were the topic of discussion. To basically talk about animal liberation as opposed to veganism and the relationship between those two. So the point is to say that veganism might not be for everyone, but animal liberation is for everyone. And that's why animal liberation is a much more, should be much more of a focus of vegans Let's say that. And there's the whole thing about ethics, but I'm not going to get into that. So, and yeah, and Adam, please read my comments because I think you're being a complete hypocrite.
Well, it sounds to me like we could use a break. What do you guys think?
I just wanted to say that I felt that I was also, I was also talking about vegetarianism, and I said, you know, how that would fit into the humanities platform. And maybe I didn't say it in those words, but I was alluding to it. Cesare, please stop calling me names, and please stop saying that I'm a hypocrite. I'm 66 years old, buddy, and I'm a lot more intelligent than you give me credit for. And I have a lot of experience that you probably don't have. I'm guessing you are probably in your early 40s. I'm probably 20 or 25 years older than you. So really, you should watch how you talk to other people, because it'll come back and bite you in the butt.
I think you should be careful to judge people based on their age, because just because you're older doesn't mean you know better. It could also mean that you've been doing something for a lot longer the wrong way. Maybe you've been doing something wrong for 40 years. That's not really to your credit. But please don't. I totally respect you, man. Listen, I'm not trying to attack you. I value the fact that you're an activist, and you're definitely trying to contribute. But yeah, I'm not trying to make this me versus you. It's but at the same time, it is frustrating, because you know what? I've put a lot of work. You're talking about someone rich funding your vision. Well, you know what? I've put pretty much everything I have on the line. I don't have a lot of money, but I put the money that I have behind this. And you're complaining that somebody else doesn't do something for you when people with a lot less are doing a lot more. That's actually disrespectful to me. That's a waste of real activist time, people who are really working hard to realize their vision. And then you just crap on it because you're like, oh, I just want a rich person to pay for a perfect platform. Why don't you do the work of helping me, Igor, make better? Like, why don't you actually first do the work of trying it? Because you'll have to put your ideas to the test, my friend. You're going to have to test whether people actually support your ideas. Are you afraid of finding out that maybe people won't support your ideas? They're going to be like, that sounds nice, Adam, but you know what? Nah. Because that's what's going to happen. Or maybe not. Maybe your ideas will succeed. Hell, maybe you have some great ideas that you will unleash upon us, and they will rise up to the top. But hey, find out. You know, this is your opportunity to test it. But yet, you just want to complain that somebody doesn't give you a shitload of money for basically a dream. So
everything you're saying is not true. It's not even it's not a fair depiction of me at all.
Well,
or what I'm trying to do.
Listen, I invite.
I think you should let me respond to what you just said, because you said some pretty bad things about me.
Well, because
and it's not true. You know, I have worked very hard and spent my own money, a lot of my own money, and I've been ripped off and everything. I mean, it's been a hard road to hoe. And, you know, and I didn't, and like I said, when I first came on here, there's going to be a lot of people trying to solve those problems with an economic system, different kinds of economic systems. All I'm saying is, I'm saying that, you know, I'm not going to be able to stop that. All I'm saying is that, you know, it's like Jamin said, we should have different segments of this platform. You know, there should be different allowances for different ones. And I'm saying there should be an allowance for a world without money. Because there is a large contingency that Agora, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's really tuned for the 80%, you know, because like the statistics show, and this is really a rough figure, okay, but that 20% of the world holds 90% of the world's wealth. So that means that 80% splits 10% of the wealth between them. And those are the people in the second and third worlds that I did my last video on.
I don't see how that has anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, make sense of that.
Okay, so statistics show that 20% of the world holds 90% of the world's wealth.
How is that related to anything we're talking about? Like how many topics are you talking about at once?
I'm trying to explain to you and answer your question. So that money is power. So that means that 80% of the world splits 10% of the power, essentially, between them.
Are you talking about the platform, or are you talking about the world without money? Because I'm sorry, because
will you just let me finish so that you can understand what because I'm trying to get there. And so that means that the 80% of the world, the majority of the world, doesn't have the voice. And so the people that are joining Agora and they're voting for what are the best ideas, most of those people grow up in the world of money. Most of those people, I think, are probably in the 20%.
Anyone can sign up for Agora, including you, which you refuse to. You have money, and yet you still refuse to exercise that. I think that's a much bigger problem, because you know what?
I didn't. I just sent you a message saying that I would.
I can't wait to compare our ideas, my friend.
And I'm not. And you're assuming that I have money. That's an assumption.
Well,
you don't know.
You're wearing a nice jacket. It's better than a lot of people in the
still an assumption. My brother gave me this jacket.
Okay, well, you still have a lot more than all these poor people. And guess what? They still have phones, and they can still sign on for Agora.
And I admit I'm in the 20%.
Yeah.
So, but the rest of the world, the big part of the world, they don't have. They're not in the 20%. So they don't have much of a voice. And what I'm saying is that they would have a because they didn't grow up in the world of money, they would be much more, they might be much more willing to accept a world without money than those of us that grow up in the world of money.
I need you to stay on one topic, because you're talking about two things, and I think you're jumping between the topics so you can avoid a conclusion on one.
I'm trying to avoid any conclusion. If ask me a question. If you think I'm avoiding something, then go ahead, James. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cut into this one here altogether, because I could kind of hear when I was out there in the kitchen as well, coming up from the toilet. But I think Adam, I think Cesare is right in the sense that you need to probably explore the Agora a bit more first to understand its principles of it, because you'll see by the principles that it is a platform for anyone in the world, especially those in the lower 80%, because anyone with a mobile phone, as he said, they are access to a computer, can log on to Agora and submit their own ideas to make the world a better place. And if their ideas are good, then they'll escalate in the Agora, which is the platform in the sense that, in essence, what you're looking for to help those and your ideas about money are what Cesare is saying that you should submit. And if those ideas seem to take off with people, then they'll be supported as well. But the point is, you're in the top. You just said that you're the top 20% there, but you're worried about the people in the lower 80. Well, both of you have the opportunity to lodge your ideas into the Agora and see how they go. In saying that, I just think that's just your misunderstanding of Cesare's platform. And I think that you'll find that platform, along with this platform that Jamin is trying to sort out, are both platforms for you to try and get your ideas or support for your ideas or evolve your ideas. That's what I think about in that sense. And going back to the start of this conversation, I also agree with you, Adam, that I think you need to. I think you're right, Grant. You're an older person. I'm 52 years of age. Cesare's in his 40s, whatever. Nolan's in his 20s, and yet Nolan could be far more intelligent than all three of us here put together. So age doesn't, in a sense, have anything to do with the intelligence side of it, other than experience gives us we learn a lesson from that and what we apply ourselves to. Apart from that, I don't think it's fair, Cesare, that you do, because you are an intelligent man, Cesare, right? And I respect you for that. But I do have reservations because I find that you're a slightly impatient man, and you don't have time for bullshit. Like, so you don't bullshit in your idea of what bullshit is. So you don't have time for the other parts of conversation that aren't of interest to you. You just want to cut to the bullshit. I can understand that. That's your passion. You're a driven man, and I respect that, and that's no problem. But I do kind of agree with Adam in the sense that I think you should try and refrain from the I wouldn't say names. You said he was a hypocrite, so you had a valid point. You were making the point that he was saying that he's trying to support the world without money, but he's looking for a millionaire to support it. So I get what you came back by that. That crossed my mind myself in a sense. But Adam's on about supporting the platform to initially get it off, so I can understand that as well. Therefore, I know you're an intelligent man. I think you get it too, but I think Adam slightly pisses you off. So I do I'm just saying that's the impression I'm getting. So I think you should back off a little in the sense of if you do feel yourself a little bit impassioned to call someone something or fucking say something like that, hold off, man. You know what I mean? That's what we're supposed to keep it respectful, and I have to hold off too sometimes. You know what I mean? That's just the way things are. Like, but conversations and good conversations can be completed if they get fucking interrupted by emotion. You know what I mean? So let's try and hold that down too,
James, I know what you mean. It's just that I'm always trying to be respectful, and I do have respect for Adam. I mean, this guy's an activist. He's putting his passion into it as well. But
I know you do. I know you do.
We've met 3 separate times, and then it was the same. I've had to listen to him 3 times. Just my brain actually hurts. It physically hurts to listen to someone say they want something, and then you give it to them, and then they say, but I want that, and then but here, so at a certain point you're just like, okay, well, this is how I see things. It's if you're making my brain hurt, I'm going to make your brain hurt just so you can see the other side of the story. So
and therein is the point I was making, where I'm asking you to refrain from that, because as much as you might be ticked off by Adam's repetitiveness sometimes, as we all do repeat ourselves sometimes, I'm on the Block Party for the last 7 shows, and I've known Adam for all 7 of those, I think 6 or 7 of them anyway. And I've heard Adam speak about his money idea over each, more or less, most of those when he has a chance to have a talk and talk about his idea. So I've heard Adam repeat himself as much as he's probably heard me repeat himself, or anybody else repeat himself, or Jamin repeat himself. And we're going to hear you talk to, as you meet new people, repeat yourself to introduce them about the Agora thing. So, you know, regardless. But if somebody's repeating themselves and if they're repeating something that you pissed you off or whatever, switch off the screen and go and have a fucking, you know, 5-minute fucking break yourself. Like, don't let them piss you off. Just walk away, come back again. You know what I mean? But don't, you know, don't react. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Not in the conversation.
Yeah, well, it's not that he's repeating himself. It's just that I'm offering him what he's asking for. That's the frustrating part. You know, it's like he's asking for something, you give it to him, and then he's still asking for it. And it's like,
which is why I started off with.
You're not offering me what I'm asking for.
Well, which is why I started off in my interjection with speaking to Adam first, because I did say that to Adam, that I do believe he needs to explore your platform a little further, because he's not understanding the principle of it in a sense. Adam, he actually is offering that platform for you, for your idea. You're just not, I don't think you're understanding it properly. So that's why I'm saying, I started off by saying, I think you should explore the platform further.
Well,
so
I said,
you could see that it is a good platform for your idea, just as much as Jamin's platform is also a great platform for discussing your idea.
And I said that I acknowledged that I might be wrong.
No, wait, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that you're not wrong. In no way you're not wrong.
I'm just saying that
you're not wrong. Honest to God, what I'm saying is that you're just misunderstanding the platform that Cesare is offering, and that you're not giving it the chance by going and exploring it further. It's like not reading the book and giving a criticism on it. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's not like that. Because
I'm just saying I think to myself, if you look into the platform a little further, you'll see that it is a good platform for you to lodge your idea if you so wish. I'm just saying.
I'm going to, but I don't think
to see what support
it's not the kind of platform that I'm thinking that humanity needs, because I
think it's part of
it. It's partway there. It's partway there, but in order to have the platform that I'm talking about, you need a few other things. It would be an expensive platform, and I certainly couldn't afford it. And
that's the platform you're envisioning. That's the platform you're envisioning.
Exactly.
Adam.
And the reason
what I'm talking about is Cesare's platform and Jamin's.
Please finish my sentence.
Yeah, sure, sorry.
Okay. Because I say that we need someone super rich to step up to the plate, because it needs to be built. Once it's built, then people will come. And then once people come, then it can be paid for. It should be self-supporting from the offerings from the membership. But the really wealthy people, someone could be really quite a hero to humanity by giving humanity a platform, and that's what I'm trying to go for. And not there's no hypocrisy there.
Yeah, that's why I interjected, Adam. I didn't believe you were being a hypocrite in the sense. I was just saying that I'm only interjected in the conversation you were having there between yourself and Cesare, and I believe that it was just not going anywhere good. So.
Well, James, arguments are all right. I mean, humans don't always agree on everything, and I can defend myself. So, you know, you're getting into more of an argument, just trying to split up our argument. I mean, why don't you just back off and let us talk it out?
That's fair enough. But if you were the one that was saying that you were getting upset because, you know, he was disrespecting you, you're in all the problems.
Getting upset is okay. When somebody calls you you know, says you're incompetent or whatever, you know, all kinds of terms that he used. I mean, I can defend myself. And he's not right. So, I mean, I can easily, I can waltz all around him. He just doesn't realize it.
Well, I don't want to play host if we're going to continue doing this. I'm going to pause recording.